Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today, we are stepping our toe into one of my favorite runs of comics in general, but specifically from Marvel, because as everybody knows, I do not like Marvel that much.
He's a hater.
I'm a hater. I can't help it. I like what I like, and most of that stuff just happens to be DC. But there is an exception to that, and it was a little series in the early and mid 2000s called The Ultimates. And good God, I love this series. So we're actually going to do a 4-part series for the next 3 months after this one. That's going to be, we're going to read the first trade of each Ultimates line. So Ultimate Fantastic Four, Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimates, and Ultimate X-Men.
Yeah.
And that should be pretty cool. I actually had a really fun time reading this today, John. Did you have, you seem like you had a fun time reading this too. Like it was an eye-opening experience.
Yeah, and I feel like coming back to it with fresh eyes now after, being in, especially partially, living the MCU for the last 10 plus years now. And then also being much more of a dedicated comic reader. And so picking up on certain things that way. It was a cool read. 'Cause I remember reading this when it came out, and I don't think I'm excited to read, I think Spider-Man
Right.
and maybe X-Men, because I remember only specifically doing the main line of the Ultimates and then the Fantastic Four. I read probably most of the we said 10 or 11 trades of that. I'm pretty sure I read most, if not all of that. And I loved it. So I was really excited to get back into this. There were things I remembered. I was like, oh yeah, that's awesome. And then there were things I was like, I do not remember that.
Yeah.
So this is really, really good. I'm glad we're revisiting it, and it's a good time to check back into it.
For sure. And I think that I think the thing about this comic is because the movies have come out and everybody kind of made it seem, everybody did say, and I said this too, I've been guilty of this. They say the Ultimates is what the movies are. And the Ultimates are not what the movies are. Maybe aesthetically, right? Everybody looks like they do in the Ultimates comics, but the attitudes and the storylines are way more not sugar-coated like they are in the Marvel universe or MCU stuff. So I actually really like that. I thought this was just going to be literally I'm reading, Avengers, number 1 or whatever, the movie. But no, it was not that at all. And I was very happy. I forgot all these storylines. And then as I was reading, I'm like, wait, doesn't that happen? And then it would happen. I'm like, oh shit, I forgot about that. So yeah, I think it was really cool that we decided to do this. Cause also, like I said, I'm not a big Marvel fan, but for some reason, all of the Ultimate line just really felt fresh to me and kept me interested. It was taking the old stories and making them or updating them for the new era of readers, in the 2000s. So, and if you don't know what the Ultimates are, so Marvel had continuity for 40 years or whatever, since the 60s, basically, of, Spider-Man would be doing Spider-Man stuff. It was going from issue 1 to issue 400 or 600 or something. And they were realizing we're that's making people not want to pick up the new issues, right? Because it's so far in, there's a lot of continuity. You have to have read Spider-Man for a really long time to understand what's going on at the moment in Spider-Man. So they decided in the early 2000s to reboot it, but not the main title. They just said, we're going to reboot all our titles under something called the Ultimate Universe. So you had Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Fantastic Four, Ultimate X-Men, and the Ultimates, which was Ultimate Avengers. And yeah, I mean, that's basically what it was. And all of these sold amazingly. Everybody was 100% on board with this from day one. And part of that, I think part of the success is that they got a writer that I really like. One of my favorite writers now, really, but back in the day, I thought he was a pretty solid writer. And that is Mark Millar, who you might know as the writer of Kick-Ass and a bunch of other stuff. He's got like a bunch of Netflix shows that are in progress right now. So he did Wanted. We've read Wanted for the show. So and just all around, I think he did The Kingsman too. That's like another thing that he did that was really popular. That got a movie. So really good writer, and this is like his earliest stuff. Like before this, I think he'd only written like X-Men and The Authority, and then he got Marvel brought him over, and then he did Ultimates with them. So he actually wrote Ultimates and Ultimate X-Men, and so those were the two titles he like cut his teeth on at Marvel. And I mean, reading this, I thought you could definitely tell he's younger now, like he's a little bit more immature with his story writing or whatever, but it's still the same Mark Miller that we know and love. So I like that a lot.
For sure. There's actually some of the things in this I felt really comparison to American Jesus, because we just did that for our
oh yeah he wrote that
our Easter special, and so I we're kind of coming fresh off of some of his newer that something that took him 20 years to write basically. So yeah, it was fun to hop into this, and so let's get into it.
Yeah, so like I said, it's written by Mark Miller. The art is by Brian Hitch, and if you didn't know, this is basically the redesigns that Brian Hitch did for this comic is what they used for the MCU. So, you have a Samuel Jackson looking Nick Fury. You have Captain America with a suit that looks a lot more like actual leather and, armor that you would wear as a soldier rather than, some like spandex suit that he wears. So things like that I thought were really cool. Thor has like the one, definitely the one from the MCU where he's got like the like glowing lights on his chest and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Oh, were you gonna say something? I thought you were gonna say something.
Oh no, I was just agreeing. No, Thor, yeah, and I Thor. I think well, as we get into this, but I think Thor ended up being Thor and Cap are my favorites again.
Oh yeah, for sure. And they are for me too. But we start off, and each chapter is named something different. So it's six issues total for this first volume, and the first chapter is called Superhuman, and we start off in World War II. You gotta introduce the main guy, Captain America.
I wonder who that's gonna be about.
Yeah, exactly. So it's they're flying, or he's on a mission with a bunch of other soldiers to go into Iceland. There's some sort of military base where the Nazis have actually developed a hydrogen bomb, it says later, before the U.S. has built their bomb, and they're going to launch it like today or tomorrow or whatever. So that's what this raid is on Iceland. Captain America is... I liked this a lot. Like all the soldiers, he's on the plane with them before they drop, before they parachute out of the plane. And all the soldiers think he's a joke except Barnes. Bucky Barnes is there on the plane with him. And he's like, no, Cap's great. And everybody's like, man, he's just some fucking propaganda guy. He's not even going to jump with us probably. Do you buy all those stories they say about him? And Bucky's like sticking up for him. And Steve can hear all this. Steve can hear them saying bullshit to him, like about him. But, he's actually like super professional and like a good leader because he's like, nah, he doesn't even like acknowledge it. He's just like, let's just go. We're ready to go, guys. Look, stand up and get ready with your parachutes. So,
but then he jumps out of the plane without a parachute.
Well, yeah, of course. And they're like, he didn't even have a parachute. He's not even coming with us, which you got to love. So, and I thought this like worked really well. Like, you see them land, you see the battle sequence, people are dying. They're like, some Captain America, huh? Look at us dying. And then all of a sudden you see Cap show up. He actually crashes the plane that they were on into the base and then falls in. And then we do find that there was a bomb there. And as the Nazis like launch it, because they're like, oh shit, we're getting overrun. We got to launch this thing now so we can win the war. They launch it. Cap jumps on it, gets inside of it, and is able to disarm it or disable it by throwing a grenade under its, I guess its skin or whatever, the metal skin.
The shell, yeah.
The shell, yeah. And it blows up in the air, and that's how Captain America gets blown up in the water over Newfoundland, or just off the coast of Newfoundland. So he falls in the water, gets frozen. So it's like a variation on the Captain America origin, which I mean, because of the movie, but I mean, this is a lot different than how it happens in the movie and how it happened, I think, in the comic as well.
Yeah, well, I'd say that's. I mean, he takes on a warship in the movie as opposed to a rocket. That's
right.
kind of more like Ant-Man and Wasp doing there in the movie verse wise.
Right.
But yeah, no, I liked it, and I mean, we know it's Cap, so we know he's gonna come back. But I do like it's kind of ominous, like he just kind of like floats away down like into the abyss of the waters.
Right. Yeah. And then you get like I like this part where you get the note he wrote Gail, who was his girlfriend at the time, Gail Richards, and like that note is so sad because he's like it's basically like him being like, so I'm dead. Sorry, I should have listened to you. I'm sorry we didn't get to meet with one another or like see each other again, but we will like in heaven and stuff. I really liked that actually, that you get to see like because they don't really touch on that in the movies, but like obviously Captain America would be pretty 1940s American, like Christian, we're assuming, you know, and like that kind of stuff. So they don't really touch on that because that would probably be out of popularity or whatever, you know, him being a big square isn't really cool. Right. So they do a little bit of him being a square, but most of it's like cultural, not like religious stuff. So I actually liked that they lean into him if he actually was from the 40s, you know, like he is not he's of course he's going to be some kind of Christian. He's going to say, you know, we'll see each other in heaven one day, that kind of thing. So and I don't know about you, but as I was reading this, I was like, they are like the ones in the movies, like each character, except crazier versions, like not happy versions of themselves, you know? They're like the horribly flawed versions of themselves, pretty much. I think probably Iron Man doesn't get the same amount of screen time to actually like make him look different compared to like Robert Downey Jr.'s character in the movies. But and like I guess Hank Pym is completely not like his movie character for any reference, but we'll get into that when we get into that. But but yeah, like Hank Pym is very different from the movie, but I'd say you know, Nick Fury the same as the movie. Bruce Banner is very different from the movie, like in a certain way. Like in the movie, he's like a sad, flawed person. Like he's sad about everything, but he's like, and he's kind of like, oh, I don't like it, and I hate being the Hulk, and blah blah blah. But in this, there's like a much more of a push and pull in his personality and like against his regular personality and the Hulk inside of him, and it's like, you know, he doesn't like the Hulk, but he also likes the Hulk because it makes him powerful. Because during the day or what, you know, at normal times when he's not the Hulk, he is just a nerdy scientist that no one likes. And like, I liked that a lot. It made the characters a lot more interesting, I thought, than just what they are in the movie.
That's true. This Bruce Banner in this is very not unlikable, but he's definitely like even though he's like one of the greatest geniuses of their time, like he's still very much like, yeah, you're only here because we need like you to figure out this nerd shit.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
They don't really treat him as like an equal for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then also one thing I like, so after the World War II sequence, we cut to 50 years ahead. Now that Steve Rogers is gone, and we cut to Nick Fury talking to Bruce Banner because Bruce Banner has been hired by SHIELD to reinvent or come up with a new super soldier serum, and he's having a hard time of it. But also we get flashbacks of something, I guess, you know, because these came out in different orders, but I think we're flashing back to apparently in Ultimate Spider-Man, Hulk or Bruce Banner hulked out and like smashed half of the city or something. And Spider-Man had to fight him, is what I'm assuming happens. I don't know because we haven't read that yet, but they do a flashback where they're like, where Fury's like, so Bruce, you feeling okay after what happened? And then like they flash back to Hulk fighting Spider-Man and smashing a bunch of shit in the city. And Bruce is like, yeah, it's okay. I'm okay now. Like, I think the Hulk is gone. I haven't, we tested my blood for the last 3 days and there hasn't been any Hulk genes found or anything. So yeah, like it's definitely in the background. Something obviously happened in one of the other Ultimates titles that is tying into this, because they mentioned some other stuff too. And it's like later on about, I can't remember what it was about, but it's like, oh, that must have happened in one of the other books. But you can just kind of assume like, oh, he's having trouble with the Hulk, you know?
Yeah, because he asked like why he comes to Bruce Banner, and he even says like, why don't you ask like Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, and they're like, yeah, they're off, blah blah blah, like doing something because they're not part of this story right now.
Yeah, and basically they were like, yeah, that's true. They say like, oh, they're away from Earth at the time, but it's kind of funny because that means that like they're like, well, you were the only person we could ask. Like you're the last person we would ask, and
you're the smartest man currently.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Currently, you are the best choice we have. So yeah, basically they're like, we're gonna get you more funding. Try to get you that super soldier serum. We need a super soldier because they're forming the Avengers, and that's a whole thing. And part of that is, I guess Tony Stark in the background has made a deal with Shield that he wants to lead them, and that's the only way he would join as Iron Man is if he can lead the Avengers. And because Banner was like in charge of the whole super serum or super soldier project, he was technically the leader, but then now they're moving to a new facility. They got more funding and they're officially becoming the Avengers, and Tony Stark is taking over from Banner. So also in the background, we get introduced to Janet and Hank Pym, and they're interesting. We're seeing like Hank basically they are scientists only right now, and they're very excited to be new superheroes. Like they've been asked because they have developed the technology, the Ant-Man technology, where Hank can talk to ants. He's also can become giant, like Giant Man, and so that's why they're being asked to be superheroes. But they're very new at the superheroing. They're not like seasoned or anything yet. So yeah, and this was interesting. Like early in this 6-issue arc, they seem to have a fairly good relationship. Like making jokes. They seem to love each other. We'll see. That might not be the case by the end of it, but.
And it seems like Wasp, she has able to like shrink down and grow wings, has wings pop out of her back. We just don't know the extent of like her full powers yet.
Yes. Yeah. Like she knows what her full powers are, and Hank knows what her full powers are, but they haven't disclosed exactly what her full powers are to Shield or the Avengers Initiative or whatever they're going to call it.
No, all Shield and Nick Fury know is that that apparently, in addition to Ant-Man stuff, Hank Pym also created the Wasp stuff for Janet.
Yes, that is the assumption, or at least that's what they've told them. One thing I wanted to ask you about. So, in the Iron Man armor here, I do not like the design of the Iron Man armor in this. It's a little bit different than the movie one. It's a little bit more like bulky in the chest and stuff. But like apparently in the suit, there's like a fluid that surrounds him. So every time he gets out of the suit, he's covered with like this green fluid, which I thought was funny and like made sense, like if you're going to be in some kind of suit where you're like flying around and shit, it would like cushion you, against your armor. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I forgot about it. Like I remembered it was a little clunky looking, like it's kind of bulkier, but I don't mind it. Like it's still a fun design, and I think he does go through a couple of different iterations throughout as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did not remember. Yeah, that he's like gets out and he's always wet with some kind of liquid that helps keep him.
Yeah, some kind of green
protected and intact. Yeah, yeah, because there's someone who's supposed to like come out and be kind of like a play. Like he's still definitely drinking all the time. They're kind of leaned more into that than the movies did later. But definitely he's still coming off kind of like snarky playboyish, and it coming out covered in whatever this green goo is. It's not very
exactly. So I just thought that was interesting and kind of funny. We also see that, I guess because Stark is with the team now and they have the funding, they're building a new base outside of Manhattan, which I guess is the one in the movie. I think that one's a little bit closer to land than the one in the comic, but I think it's actually attached to land in the comic. I mean, in the movie. So in the comic, it's actually like its own little island, maybe like a half mile off of New York Island. So, is that what it's called? New York Island? I don't fucking know.
Something like that.
New York. I guess we'll just call it New York. So yeah, we get to see the new digs, like the new place that they work and all that. And And we see Giant Man is actually, or Ant-Man is testing the Giant Man serum for the first time here. And they talk about some interesting things that I think come back later. Maybe not in the Mark Millar run, but I think they come back in the Jeff Loeb series, which is Ultimates 3, which happens later, which is unanimously panned and hated, but or at least from everybody I've heard. I'm sure someone likes it out there, but yeah, like they talk about how like when he grows, one, he gets super hungry because his metabolism is now for like a giant person, right? And then also like if he eats giant, like if he eats a shit ton of cows or something, or, you know, cooked meat or whatever, and then he shrinks down immediately, all of that meat is still inside of him. It would burst his stomach because it would not shrink with him.
Yeah.
And that's like an interesting like thing to add, like something he should think about. But he does say that like your body, like when he says like, I want to grow large, like when he does that thinking command or he pushes the button or whatever, his body will not let him, like it knows like you can't get bigger than 60 feet. Like that's the cutoff. So 60 feet or over, like you're going to like explode. Your muscles can't handle your weight and stuff. But if you're under 60 feet tall, then you're good to go. And he says like, oh, my body will just kind of automatically know I can't get that big. So one thing that I liked, and it's very much like obvious, but they can't do it in the movie or the comics usually, because the Ultimates is also like a little bit more adult than the regular Marvel line. Whenever like Janet, what were we gonna say?
I was like, you could say it's a little edgelordy.
It's definitely edgelordy, but like, I mean, what I mean is like there will be nudity or like almost nudity and stuff, right? So there will be swearing, things like that, things that wouldn't normally be in a Marvel comic of this generation. I don't know about nowadays, but like when Giant Man gets big, his clothes rip, so he's got to develop a suit that, you know, allows it to stretch when he grows and get smaller when he shrinks. But that was interesting to see, like, oh yeah, they do mention that at least, that like, yeah, he didn't like when he first grows giant, it like his whole suit tears and then he's just a giant man naked in front of everybody. I'm surprised they don't make any like dick jokes or anything, you know, because
that is surprising. There
was a scene where he walks over a bunch of like people and he's like, hello ladies or whatever. And I thought he was going to say something, but he doesn't. But he's not naked when he does that. He's in his suit. So, and then what happens when he grows big is like all the screens cut out from the people observing. And then you hear Hank say like, oh, I'm turning inside out. And then they freak out and like kill the test and then run in the room. And then it turns out it was a joke. But one of my favorite parts of this comic is Bruce Banner is in the room and he was freaking out for a second because of that. And we get a flash that even though people say like, oh, I guess the Hulk isn't there because you would have freaked out. Like you would have hulked out if he was, right? And he's like, yeah, you're right. Definitely. And then then we see like a flash of the Hulk's face. And it's just super like, uh-oh, I don't think the Hulk is out, you know? I liked that a lot. It was like always in the background, like, oh shit, is this going to be the time when he hulks out? What's going to trigger it?
Yeah, it was very much like a tease throughout most of this, like, oh, what's going to be the thing that like kind of puts him over the edge?
Yes, exactly. So we get like now the team is forming. We have Iron Man, we have Hank Pym, Janet Pym, we have Bruce Banner, of course, and now all of a sudden someone just happened to find a frozen Captain America in the ice, and it came at the exact right moment. And they even say that in the comic, like, wow, this was fortuitous. Like just when we needed this to happen, it did. I thought that was funny. Like they called it out, like, yes, we just need this to be a thing in the comic to make the comic work. So, yeah, I just like that a lot. So yeah, they find him frozen and they're going to like unthaw him, but he's basically exactly what they needed. They also mentioned that because Banner is working with them and he hulked out and tore the city apart in areas when I guess in Amazing Spider-Man or Infinite Spider-Man, or Ultimate Spider-Man. Like people don't know that he's working with them or that he's the Hulk, I should say. And so it's always in the background, like, oh, remember when you tore up that, you ruined the city, you know, like, Like people will say shit like that around him. They're not very nice to him the whole time, pretty much, and it's very interesting. But yeah, that's going around because he's feeling like useless now. Like we said, he wasn't the first choice to be the scientist for this project. He also has nothing to offer other than the Hulk. So that's going on like in his mind in the background is, he's only got one job, which is to make the super soldier serum. So he's very happy when they find Steve Rogers because now he believes from using Steve Rogers' blood that they will be able to make a second or, more super soldiers. So that's very happy. That's very good for him, I guess, in his mind.
Yeah.
What do you think of the scene right here where Steve Rogers wakes up from his, being cold?
I loved it, and I liked that. Like nobody was safe, and specifically Nick Fury. It wasn't even like because in the movie, they try to ease him into the time, and this is just like, hey Cap, don't worry, you've just been away for a while, and I'm we're gonna get you taken care of though, and Nick Fury's like, yeah, or I think they introduce him. They're like, yeah, this is Colonel Nick Fury, and like, I guess that's one of the things that sets off Steve.
Yeah, Steve's like, there's no black man that high in rank, because he thinks it's still the 50s or whatever, the 40s, and so he's like, nice try, your accent's spot on, but there is no black person that is that high of a rank in the U.S. military, because I know the guy that's the highest, and it's not Colonel or whatever. Sergeant or whatever his name. I don't know. What is his rank in this? General Fury? I don't fucking know.
Yeah, it's general.
Okay. So yeah, there's no general who's African American in the U.S. military in the 40s. So that's why he's like, good one. Nice try, Nazis. Like, I think he calls them Fritz, which is funny.
Yeah.
And then he breaks out, but they are able to, I think Giant Man smashes the car that he jumps into and is able to capture him. So then we do like I liked this issue, but it definitely was a little bit slower because we have to bring Captain America up to speed. He goes to visit Bucky, who did not die, like he does in the main comic. So Bucky Barnes has never become Winter Soldier in the Ultimates universe.
No, all of this surprised me. Yeah, I did not remember. So Bucky doesn't die. He grows to be an old man, and he marries Cap's sweetheart.
Of course. What else is he gonna do? That's how they bond.
I have to take care of her.
Yeah, he's like, hey, hey, babe, if you need a shoulder to cry on, I'm right here. A shoulder or more, So like, but yeah, and Cap, he's not happy with it, but he's also like understanding. Cap is pretty understanding of everything in this. He definitely does feel like a man out of time in this, way more than he does in the movies. Like in the movies, he's like, what? A television? Who's this actor? Like that kind of shit. And they do that in this, but also they really make him feel like what he says. He's always like, man, like I do not understand this fucking world, the people in it, the way people act. I miss my time even more so. Like that's kind of the more thing is he's just sad he's not in his time because he lost everything. He doesn't understand this place he's in now, even though it's the same city. So he actually like lives in like a tenement building is what it looks like. Like there's graffiti everywhere because he's like, I can't spend over like $600 for an apartment in New York is crazy, but this is like the cheapest one I could find because they're like, why don't you, now that you get paid from the Avengers, you should like stay in a nice place. He's like, I can't do that. Like, because in his mind, $600 is like almost half of what you make in a year. Like, like that's like crazy money to him. So, and there's like the shock of what things cost and whatnot that they go into, but he definitely has like a sadder personality in this than he does in the movies.
Well, I don't know. I think they explore it pretty well, at least in the back half of the first movie. I think Winter Soldier too.
Okay, he's sad, but I mean, he like files in to the Avengers pretty quickly. He will every now and then mention like, "Oh, who's that actor?" I don't get the joke, like that kind of shit. But there's no sadness in his eyes the entire time. You know what I mean?
That's true. Okay, I'll give you that.
That's what I'm saying. He's very like sad the entire time in this comic, except when he's punching shit. That the only time he's not sad is when he's like, "Oh fuck yeah, it's time to like get mad, and we have an enemy to fight, and that's what I do." Like it's kind of like anybody who's sad or like depressed or something. Like you can push that away while you're working or while you're like focusing on something else that you need to focus on. But the rest of the time, he is pretty sad and depressed about, not being in his time and missing everybody. And he even says like, oh yeah, like everybody I know is dead. Even the kids that were around when I was an adult in the 40s are old men or dead now. So, that's how it is. It makes sense. A little bit better. Oh. I totally forgot about this. I wanted to ask you, John. So the comic is a lot more, we'll call it dated, because it does take place in the 2000s in America with the president that we had at the time. So George Bush is actually in this comic.
When I turned the page and I saw, so there's like a gala at the New Avengers like compound thing, and so they have a bunch of like high military people. Yeah, and then the president shows up, and I was so surprised to turn the page and see W's face.
Yes, it's W. And yeah, I just thought that was like hilarious. I was like, oh man, John's gonna be like, what? Like that's the only thing about this is it definitely is a dated comic because of the references and stuff they put in it, but it also makes it feel, as someone who grew up then and knows the reference, like it makes it feel fun and of the time. But later on, like say in 40 years, if someone reads this, are they gonna like understand any of that shit? It'd be like, if someone was talking about like I Love Lucy and fucking Nixon or something in a book, or not Nixon, I guess it would be JFK. Like it just seems it would just take you out of it if you didn't know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it is funny as like someone who grew up during that time to see the president of that time and all that. They even talk about like the actors, like they talk about Brad Pitt. The one thing that was really interesting, so as they're getting the Avengers together, they're all sitting on the spaceship, or not their space. They're sitting in their like the compound that they built, and they're all like talking now about like they're having a little conversation about who would play who, and one of those is they're saying like, oh, Iron Man or Tony Stark would be played by Johnny Depp, and and of course Nick Fury calls out and says, I would be Sam Jackson, of course. So like they obviously, did that on purpose, but I just thought that was funny. Like all the castings weren't too bad. Like they actually like were pretty close to some of them. So, but yeah, that's what's going on. I mean, like they're just becoming a team, getting to know each other. We see Cap hanging out with Janet, Pym, and they're like going around shopping, and this is something, I don't know if he was being too subtle, or just trying to be subtle and build it, but you see Janet hanging out with Steve a lot. I don't know why that happens, but it does seem like they're becoming friends, but there doesn't seem to be anything romantic between them.
No, I never kind of think romantic. It seems more like in the movies with Natasha and him.
Yes, yeah.
Just someone trying to get him like to actually be his friend and kind of like get him accustomed to like the way the world works now.
Yes.
I forgot when you were talking about all the references. When Cap asked how Nick Fury's nose is doing, because he, punched in his nose and pretty much broke it. Nick Fury says that he had his nose. He's okay because his nose has been smashed more times than Robert Downey Jr.
Yes. Yes.
I thought that was because of
because he plays him.
Because he plays Iron Man. Now I thought that was a fun joke to put in there, not to put a light on Robert Downey's past.
Well, when this was written in 2002, he was not an actor anymore. Pretty much. I mean, I think he'd been on a couple little things in between him going to rehabs and stuff and trying to get clean. So yeah, I mean, it was like a funny joke, and then it ended up being Iron Man, which is funny. One person in this book, I was like, wow, they really like went out of their way to make this person a bitch, and that is Betsy Ross, who is the girlfriend, or I guess they're on break from their relationship right now, but
they're on a break.
It's Bruce Banner's girlfriend, Betsy Ross, Betty Ross. I'm sorry, Betsy Ross. That's someone else. Betty Ross, and she is like terrible to him. But I think, I mean, that's why he's going through such a hard time right now too. He's very much like Steve in this, where he's just sad all the time. When he's not sciencing and like achieving anything, he is a Debbie Downer, and he is super depressed all the time about the way people treat him, because they're pretty straightforward about it. No one tries to hide that they do not like him. They think he's weird. They also know that he's the Hulk, and that kind of ostracizes him too. And but Betty is a lot more vocal about how much she does not like him at the moment. And I think they do a good job of, like, she has to be like that because of what happens later in issue 5 and 6 of this. But yeah, like it definitely, you can understand why. I'm not sure why she is like that. They don't really explain what happened to make them go on a break, other than maybe the Hulk smashing Manhattan or whatever it was.
I gotta assume it's Banner tampering with things, then becoming the Hulk when he's not supposed to, because that kind of seems to be a trend with him. And then I'm sure that, I'm sure if your boyfriend is the Hulk and you're like, okay, I promise I won't be the Hulk again, and then you destroy half a city,
right?
I'm sure that puts a strain on your relationship.
Oh, for sure, yeah. So yeah, it just seemed like at first, or like when in the first couple issues of this, she was just terrible, and I was like, man, I fucking hate her. Why is she being so mean to Bruce? But then it turns out, I think there was a reason for it. They was just kind of off page, or like in another Ultimate book, which hopefully when we read through them, we'll figure out which one that was. But I don't know, because we're only going to read the first ones, and those might be later on in those runs. But either way, it would be cool if we read Ultimate Spider-Man and the first 6 issues, the bad guy that he has to fight is Hulk. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, either way, so the only person that's left that they need to recruit, that they've wanted to recruit for the Avengers, is Thor. And I personally love this rendition of Thor. Basically, he is a man who is telling everybody that he is the Odin's son, Thor, the god of thunder. He can definitely call thunder forward and everything. He can call lightning, and he's got a hammer, and he can fly and all that. And he wears like the same suit that Hemsworth wears, but people doubt him for some reason. I don't know why you would, but people think that like there's no way you could be a real god. I think it's the god part, right? Like people know superhumans are real because there's scientific explanations, but a god is like a different level, right? That's supernatural. So what do you think of this type of introduction of character, this rendition of Thor?
I loved it, and I think partially it's because of what he's chosen to kind of like do with his life now too. He kind of has an idea of like most of what life happens on Earth here, and he's like, well, he kind of takes the seat of like, well, I'm definitely not, because Nick Fury's already asked him before to like, yeah, you want to like help, if shit goes down, do you want to help save the planet? He's like, yeah, I'm going to save the planet, but on my terms. I'm not going to join your corporate poison, secretly spilling chemicals into that. He's very much like Thor, Odin's son of Greenpeace.
Yes, yeah, very much.
I really, really enjoy it. I like him being like super environmentalist and
anti-war
yeah, like almost like, no, I'm only here for peace, and I will only fight like in the means of defense of the planet, and right, or the people that he's hanging out with other. They kind of like basically like, Thor's a hippie, man. Like this guy can't. There's no way this guy can be a god. So he's got some powers or whatnot. But look at him. He's out here in the wilderness with all these guys. They're drinking
mushroom
kombucha,
tea,
kombucha, and like talking about like saving the whales or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoyed that a lot. I think that is what turned me on to Thor. Loving Thor in this the most so far.
Yes, and he is a lot different than Hemsworth is, I will say, like as a character. I mean, Hemsworth plays more of a silly version of him, and also there's nothing about like the peacenik or like any of that stuff in there. But one of the reasons why they also think that he's full of shit and they don't believe that he's a god is because there is like a birth certificate for this person. When he was 13, he went to like a mental institution because he had a nervous breakdown. And that's where he said he found out like he was a reincarnation of Thor on Earth or whatever. And that's why they're like, that's kind of bullshit. Like we're not sure if we believe you because that sounds a little too far-fetched for us. But then, like I said, he can call down lightning and thunder. So what's the problem here? Who cares if he's actually a god? Just get him on the team. You know what I mean? But yeah. So now the team. I should also say that Thor rejects them. He says, "No, I don't want to be on your team still. I don't want to be part of your like government-run mercenary team." And so he rejects them. Says no. They leave. Then they have that scene, like I said, where they're talking about who would play them as actors, and Bruce is not part of that conversation. They're talking without him, and they like Dr. Pym is like, you know who would be a great Bruce Banner, and then like right as Bruce Banner walks in, people started saying like Woody Allen or like weird looking people, and then Pym was gonna say Steve Buscemi, but which is still probably not a good idea, I guess, because you're saying that he looks like Steve Buscemi. But Bruce assumes that they're talking shit about him, and because the part of the conversation he comes in is like kind of them talking shit a little bit about him, and so he gets super sad. And then also in the background we see Betty. You know, they're on a break in their relationship. Betty is dating fucking Freddie Prinze Jr. and like
I love that.
and like other she does not like him right now, and she's telling him like fuck off basically. So Bruce does something really stupid. He in desperation, because also like he wants, like he knows that they got funding initially, but they just built this giant base. They haven't had a reason. They even mentioned like there's only been one like metahuman attack, like superhuman attack on America. So like they have to justify why this team is needed. And so Bruce, in his depression and bad thinking or whatever, decides, you know what? What?
I was saying, in his divine wisdom.
Yeah, I guess you could say that, whatever. He's like, I'm going to take Hulk cells, mix them with Captain America's blood DNA, and inject that into myself. And that way, one, you know, I kind of want to feel like the Hulk again. I want to feel powerful. But two, it will make the Hulk out, of course, and he will rampage, and that will be, you know, no one knows that I'm the Hulk, so people will just see a monster attacking, and they'll see the Avengers, you know, stopping it, hopefully. So he calls Betty while she's on the date with Freddie Prinze Jr. and is like, babe, I gotta tell you something. I did something real bad. And she's like, I can't talk. I'm on a date with Freddie Prinze Jr. And he's like, no, I need to talk to you. And he tells her what happened. And then Bruce has like a heart attack while on the phone with her. I guess, I don't know if it's because of the super serum as well mixed in, but not feeling too good. So he hangs up on the phone with her. She calls the Avengers and stuff, but he gets an ambulance called for him. And he's like off. I don't know where he's, like in the middle of Times Square or something. So he just passes out in the middle of Times Square. And so ambulance comes, gets him. And as they're like, his heart is completely stopped. They're defibrillating him. And as they're shocking him, all of a sudden he hulks out and it's like, Betty, like must
in
get
the back
Betty.
of the ambulance. I love it.
Yes. And he's like, must stop Freddie Prinze Jr. Like, he's very, very adamant on that. Now, we talked about the difference between Bruce Banner. What do you think about the differences in Hulk?
This Hulk actually is a little legitimately
scary. It's scary.
I specifically, like, he talks about like
raping,
physically harm.
He talks about raping Betty and also raping or eating Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah, and like all the heroes at some point throughout the rest of this, he's, you know, he makes some kind of mentions of like gonna like eat the goo out of their head, or like he is legitimately terrifying.
He kind of reminded me of like Mr. Hyde or some shit, you know, like a lot more of that, a lot more sinister. Oh, yeah. You know, you got to think of it like the Hulk is an all-powerful being who's pretty much all id, right? Like he's all ego or whatever. He is straight, just like an animal almost, except more sentient. So he is just gonna go all out. If he even running around the building saying like horny Hulk, like, you know, like while he smashes shit to get to Betty. And then one thing I liked is that to stop him, so the Avengers show up. You know, they know he's rampaging. The Avengers show up, and the way that they first distract him, first Captain America takes him on, right? And you get this badass scene where Giant Man takes him on, he's able to like hold him, and they have like I guess Bruce left an what is it called? An antidote for the Hulk, and it had like an adamantium needle in it and everything, like ready to go, because he knew like I'm gonna do this, but they need to be able to stop me. But Giant Man grabs him before he can get to Betty, and he's holding him in his hands because he's giant, and he's like, "Come on, Banner, like just be cool, man." And then the Hulk breaks out of his hands, and then he's like, "I'm gonna fucking murder you. I'm gonna kill you, Giant Man." And he's like almost about to like pop his jaw open, like rip his face open from like pushing his jaws apart as hard as he can. And it looks scary. Like Hank looks scared. And then luckily Iron Man takes him out like and drags him into Central Station. And then right when Hulk smashes off his armor and is about to kill Tony, like Captain America is it Captain America who shows up, or is it?
No, it's the Wasp.
Okay, so the Wasp. Oh, that's what it is. So the Wasp shows up, and that's what I'm saying. Like he keeps being like Hulk horny, Hulk want Betty, like, and then Janet shows up, and they're like, "You got your distraction?" And she's like, "Yeah." And then she like flashes him, and he's like, "Ooh, boobies!" Like Hulk like boobies.
Yeah. And even his face, they show his face go to that like
ooh, yeah,
like what is that Tex Avery?
Yeah.
Cartoon, like woo.
Yeah. Which I thought was hilarious. And very much sets this apart. Like I said, she can, like when she transforms into Wasp, if she doesn't have her costume ready, it like she will just be naked as a Wasp. So, it was interesting to see some of that stuff in here because that would never be in the movie ever, and I thought that was funny. It was like a more adult take on the stuff we know. So she takes him on until she can't anymore, and then Captain America comes in with his tank. He ain't sad today because he's got a fucking mission, and that mission is to defeat the Hulk. So I love this. This fight was great. Just, Cap actually takes Hulk out, which I thought was cool. He takes him out like enough so that he falls down, and then Cap has the syringe. They also mentioned that Cap has like 3 plans and a backup, like no win scenario plan as well if those 3 don't work. And that no win scenario is atomic bomb on the city, so they don't want that. But I
love that I just wanted to say I love that his like the main plan that he told everybody going into it was basically punch him, just punch him until he falls down. It's just it made me think of in the movie when they're like when Iron Man's like punching Hulk, go to sleep.
Yes,
just, like, just keep punching him until he stops.
Yes. And then so Captain America has a couple other plans that he has. So the second one, I guess, is he's got the antidote. He's gonna stick him in the neck and put the antidote in him. But right before he can, Hulk wakes up and smashes him a little bit. And I don't know, like he's got his hand. I was like, oh shit, is he like?
It looks like
breaking his arm, but
broke his hand,
it's possible he did because it's Captain America. He could recover from that. But yeah, so. Then the other, like, I guess it's the third plan. We have Thor show up finally, and like he shows up, he takes on the Hulk. You get the awesome Hulk versus Thor scene. This is everybody's fucking favorite scene from this arc, I think, this story arc. I mean, it was my favorite scene in the Avengers, or one of them, like the actual movie, is when Hulk and Thor fight. I think those are fucking great scenes. So it was very cool to see Thor join. And it's only because, I thought this was funny, Thor said he would join because Tony and S.H.I.E.L.D. knew that they're going to need a really powerful person. So they were trying to get him, even though he said no before, they're trying to get Thor on the team. And he said he would do it if President Bush doubled the funding for some kind of relief. I can't remember what relief, but, starvation relief or something, and so they were like, that's never going to happen. And then because Hulk's rampaging, I guess probably the news is covering it. And it's like, oh shit, things are happening. And so the president decided to do that, which is why Thor shows up right now when he's needed. And so Thor and him fights. And the Hulk actually, even though he gets hit a couple times, he does win and beats Thor back. And then we get like the third plan, I guess. This is like plan number 3 because the other 2 failed. Betty can shrink down just like Ant-Man. She shrinks down, goes inside of Hulk's ear hole, and shocks him in the brain with her like little stinger. which I thought was a really, really cool way to defeat the Hulk. Because obviously inside his head is soft. The outside, his skin is super dense and everything, right?
Did you say Betty shrunk down?
I'm sorry, not Betty. What am I thinking?
Yeah,
the Wasp.
The Wasp. Yeah, she gets back in. Okay, I thought you said Betty, and I was like,
I did say Betty. My bad. Obviously, I'm talking about Janet. I'm talking about the Wasp.
Janet.
So Janet shrinks down, gets inside of his head. I guess pops his eardrum probably to get into his brain area and starts like shooting his head with her little stinger, and that makes him go down, and which I thought was like a great way to defeat him, kind of thing. And then that actually, I don't think he gets like. I wasn't sure how he turns back into Banner. I guess because he just like, she does say like, I'm gonna zap the part of his brain that makes him Hulk out. So I guess like just from her zapping, it like
she zaps that medulla oblongata.
There you go. Yes.
For all the all the anger and jealousy.
Exactly.
And it calms him down.
The foosball. That's where it is.
The foosball.
So. He turns back into Bruce Banner, and they're in the middle of fucking Manhattan or New York or whatever, and there's all this wreckage again. And Captain America comes up to him, and Bruce is like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry. Like, I just wanted to give you guys like an enemy and like make sure funding continued. Like, how can I ever like apologize?" And Cap walks up to him and is like, "Don't worry about it. Like, I fully understand. But let me take care of that cut on your cheek." And he's like, "Cut on my cheek?" And then Cap kicks him in the face, which I thought was funny because he's a fucking soldier. He's not here to fuck around. Like this isn't like, nowadays Marvel.
Oh, you're fine, buddy. It's okay. Let me help you up there.
Yeah, exactly. Deal with this.
Straight jacket.
Exactly. So they tie him up or whatever. They put him in that containment center that he has, that little containment room that he has in the first Avengers movie. So that
you said aesthetically, that was like looked almost direct.
Yeah, directly the same, yeah. So, we see the aftermath of everything, all the people in the hospital, all the damage that's done from Bruce. And then, but we get like, now everybody's on the side of the Avengers because they don't know that Bruce Banner is the Hulk. So they would, of course, be very mad if they found that out because it's almost like an inside job at that point, right? It's like, we're giving you funding and to like stop monsters, and then you made a monster to stop, and then killed a bunch of people and injured a bunch of people and had a bunch of damage. So, in the meantime, we do see that because Hank Pym got beat up on live TV, there's like a picture of him like knocked out almost. And like, you can see like his jaw's almost like all fucked up. And when he shrinks down, he's in the hospital, he's all puffy and everything. Everybody else is going on like talk shows, like Oprah and shit. And, what's the other one? Larry King, right? They do Larry King. So we see like Janet and everybody are getting ready to go to some kind of ball, some kind of private party, right? Or private dinner. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's a dinner. I think Tony invites everyone to dinner. Cap and Thor specifically. That was one of the. Yeah. I love Fury's like, "Oh, I never thought to invite him to dinner to like just talk with him."
Yeah. So Janet's getting ready, and she's like, she's pumped. She's had a good couple days doing interviews. Everybody loves them now because they saved New York, and we see that like while they're getting ready, like Hank isn't getting ready. Sure, she's getting ready. Hank's not getting ready. He's working on his stuff, and he seems kind of agitated tonight. It's very weird. But he's like, "God, like stop annoying me. I'm trying to finish this. I will get ready when I'm done." And she's like, "Come on, what's wrong? Like you were fine. Like, are you just mad because you got beat up on live television? Like, it's fine. No one cares." And he takes this as a slight, which I kind of was like, wow, where'd this come from? But they're setting up that he has like kind of like little man's disease or whatever, like temperament, where he's like, he just, anything that's like a slight on his ego, he's going to like go crazy about. Kind of like Marty McFly, like when people call him yellow,
Yeah.
It's like anytime someone says anything, he's like, whoa, how about you fuck off? But specifically with Janet here, he like goes crazy on her, and it's just like, you're always so like such a bitch and like all this kind of stuff.
I will say, they say one thing that they didn't show on the page. Apparently, like during all of the like celebration of beating the Hulk and everything, apparently she kissed Captain America with tongue on television.
Yeah, and he got super jealous about that. I actually had to go back because I'm like, did I miss a panel? Like,
I did too. But no, they didn't show that.
Yeah.
But then he did was like, and you showed the Hulk your boobs. So like, I don't know what's going on with you. And I did like the reveal here too. She's like, yeah, but it's fine. And I don't know why you're getting all, bent out of shape. I've let everybody think that I got my wasp powers from you.
Yeah.
They're like, what?
Yeah. It turns out that she is a mutant, not a metahuman or whatever they call them. I don't know. Like, not a super powered person. Like, she didn't get her powers from science. She got her powers from evolution, which is like Earth science. And
yeah.
and so basically, she's a mutant like the X-Men in this. And not only that, but she doesn't just shrink down and get wings. She also like has eggs every couple of weeks, like every 6 weeks. I think it says she lays eggs, and he like throws that in her face, like, you're a fucking freak. Only I would love you because of that disgusting shit. I was like, holy fuck, like he's going crazy. And then we find out that all of his tech is actually from her. Like he got it by, taking her blood and synthesizing his stuff from her. So like he owes everything to her. So yeah, maybe that's why like he freaks out so bad here, even though it seems out of character, because they did have a good relationship earlier in the comic. But maybe he secretly resented her the whole time. And now that she seems to be branching out and maybe flirting with other people, or at least that's how he's taking it, and, becoming a superhero of her own, like she's getting interviews, things like that. He's like, fuck this. Like he's not in control, and he's kind of an asshole, he's not a good guy. And also, I don't know, like how much you know about this, John, but like in the, I think it's the 70s or the 80s, Hank Pym did like abuse Janet, like in one scene.
I think I remember that. I think we talked about that like the first
time.
I
think so. But
I read this too. But
so this is like a callback to that storyline from the 70s, but this is like way worse than that. So like they get in a big fight because obviously he's pulling punches and shit, and she gets in his face, or he's not pulling punches. He's telling her like, you're a fucking freak, and who would love you besides me? Everybody else would think you're disgusting. And then she gets in his face about it. And actually, she's being pretty nice, I thought, from what she's saying. She's like, look, why are you being so mean to me? Like, there's nothing going on with me and Rogers, and, you're not, you have nothing to be ashamed of. And, like, that's the nicest thing you would say if someone said, like, you're fucking disgusting, right? Like, I was like, wow, she's being nice, even though she's getting in his face about it. But they're just kind of, like, normal arguing, except him. He's, like, being real mean. And so he actually fucking smacks her in the face. And then he says like, oh no, I'm so sorry, baby. I didn't mean to. But then she elbows him in the face as he tries to like comfort her. And then she picks up like a radio receiver and then smashes him in the face with that. And then in the background, what's going on is like a nice little dinner between Steve Rogers, Thor, and Iron Man. And they're all like, I think everything's going pretty good now. Like, I think this team's going to come together.
Yeah, everybody's working well. I don't know where Janet and Hank are, but they'll get here soon, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. So we're cutting back and forth between this nice dinner scene where everybody's kind of getting along, and then, this fight. And this thing escalates. Like, we see Janet like biting him because he's like grabbing her face and stuff. And then she shrinks down, and she's in her like dress, so she's naked as she shrinks down. This just makes it more vulnerable to me what he does, because like she starts like shooting her little stinger sparks at him, and he's like, ow, ow, ow. And then he dives and he finds a can of bug spray, and he's like, fuck you. And he like sprays her with bug spray, which is probably really bad when you're that little. Like, imagine breathing in bug spray. It must burn like a motherfucker and like be horrible for you. And then, so she runs and hides because of that as she coughs. And then she's curled up in a ball, and he looks under the dresser she's hiding, or the desk she's hiding under. And he puts on his fucking Ant-Man helmet, and he tells the ants to attack her. And she gets attacked by ants. Which, if you've ever seen like a wasp or a bug on the sidewalk being attacked by ants, it doesn't look very fun. It looks really fucked up.
No, it looks horrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've seen plenty of nature documentaries where they start pulling people apart, or other animals limb by limb. So
yeah,
like that's terrifying. I can only I know I've probably read more into this, but I can only imagine. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah, it gets super graphic in that way. Then like we pretty much end on a page where she's been attacked by ants. He's taken off his helmet. He's sitting there like, oh God, what did I do? But still, you don't know if she's dead or anything at the end of this thing. at the end of this, you're just like, did she get eaten by ants? Oh my God. So
meanwhile, Thor, Cap, and Iron Man are like, hey, I think we're all in agreement. It's like, we're gonna be a good team.
Yeah, like look at us being a great team, us guys here. I hope Janet and Pym get here soon. So like, so yeah, they clink glasses because they're best buds now, and Janet and Hank are having a fight, and he's abusing her horribly. So, yeah, it's a really like heavy thing to end on for a trade. It definitely makes you want to read what happens next, though. I'll give him that. But that is how the trade ends, with them having a big fight and him sticking ants on Janet. So, with that being said, John, what did you think, and what would you give it?
Rereading this, like, the only thing I remembered from what ended up being a whole fight was him slapping her. So
right, that's what happens in the 70s comic. He just slaps her once, and it's like, I think it's even like less than that, because it's not like this where he deliberately hits her. I think he's doing something like, what are you talking about? And he whips around fast, and then she's there, and he slaps her on accident, kind of on I think that's what it is. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure, because it's the 70s. Or the early 80s, I can't imagine they're like actually having him be like full on like this, like, shut your mouth, you bitch. Like, you know, so it was super fucked up to read that in this. So yeah, I think that's maybe what you're pulling from more than this, like in your memory.
That is probably, but specifically, yeah, like I didn't remember that it escalated to like a full on like brawl between the two of them, and then yeah, like, to fucking like, you know, one up, he's like, you know what, fuck this, I'm just gonna stick my ants on you. Like, that is terrifying. I cannot imagine like fighting, shrinking, and then being the size of an ant, and then having, you know, human-sized ants, basically, you know, hundreds of them come up to you.
Yeah,
like, that's fucking terrifying.
Well, they weren't human-sized ants to her. They were like baby-sized ants. Like, they were like human baby-sized ants to
human
us.
baby, yeah. Was gigantic still, nonetheless.
Still gigantic. Much bigger than you would want any insect biting or attacking you.
Yeah. So it was, yeah, that was definitely more wild. And then I didn't remember the Hulk being so terrifying and like vicious and wanting to like, yeah, like you said, like just going down to like caveman functions of like must rape or eat, or, you know, like that was legitimately terrifying. And like the way he's drawn too, like his eyes look like they're always like twitching, like one is almost always bigger than the other.
Yeah, and the pupil is always dilated, so he's got really small, not dilated, it's like really small, so like it's like a pinpoint in the center of his eyes, which is always creepy as fuck.
Yeah, so the Hulk was legitimately like terrifying and good, like way to like bring everybody together and be a villain in this. So I really enjoyed it. Thor really, you know, like said, that kind of stuck out for me as far as like, oh yeah, I remember liking that. And he definitely, I specifically remember there's one, I think it's the cover of the one issue of where he's in the rain and he's got his hammer up, which I will say Mjolnir in this is the hammer that is going to be half hammer, half axe. So
yeah, it's Stormbringer or whatever, you know.
It's Stormbreaker, yeah. So yeah, that's pretty badass. Because I think that was probably the first time I had seen that before too. Was reading this the first time.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I had seen like Beta Ray Bill or anything have that before. But anyway, so yeah, I loved it. It was just as fun to read, if not, like I said, a little more intense, picking up on a lot of the little things in there, a lot of the dated references, like you were saying, like it was very nostalgic to be like, oh whoa, you know, there's a lot of little things in here like that. So I really enjoyed it. The art is fun, and it keeps you guessing sometimes, like I said, with the way some of the things are drawn, like Hulk's face, or like I said, Janet kind of shrinking down, and she's not in her suit, she's naked.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very cool. I really enjoyed it, and it was a solid read. I would give this one an 8.
Yeah. I think in context of the Marvel movies, this would be a crazy book for anybody who's like, I love the MCU, let me try this. Like if I love the MCU and you go to a comic book store and you say that, people are like, oh, you should read Ultimates if you like that, because it is aesthetically the same looking as the MCU. But then all the characters in this are horribly flawed compared to the ones in the MCU. So it would be a crazy, like if you're like, I love Ant-Man. He's so funny. It's amazing. I love that character. And I love Janet. She's great too. And then you read this. Oh, good God. Like, I can't even imagine what you would think if you read this as like a normie off the street. It's like, I love MCU.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was interesting. These are definitely not for like kids, right? These aren't for like little kids. So we're like, you could go back and give the older stuff to little kids and be fine. But like the Ultimates line is a lot more adult, at least for the Ultimates. And I think Ultimate X-Men is too. I don't think that Ultimate Spider-Man is. I think Ultimate Spider-Man kept the like anybody can read this. There's not too many adult situations. There might be a little bit more violence, but it's not like this, not like over the top violence. But this is definitely like Mark Millar's calling card, right? Like he's definitely, especially at this time, a little bit of an edgelord. He likes writing edgy stuff. He likes writing stuff that surprises you, maybe like subverts your expectations from what you think because you've already read the Avengers before, and he takes it to a completely different directions. And it's in a good way. Like it definitely shocks you, but surprises you, and you can't tell what's going to happen. Never would have guessed in a million years that Janet and Hank were going to go out in the last issue like that, where Hank fucking horribly abuses her. So, like that, or even just like Thor being like a hippie, like that's so unlike the other Thor because Thor's a god of thunder. It's like a god of war as well, like so. It's definitely kind of it's an interesting take on these characters, and I think it was really refreshing at the time, and especially the art and stuff too. Like I said, aesthetically, the movies take a lot from this, and I think it's because it's so good. Like it established what they would look like nowadays in modern times, at least modern for the 2000s, and pretty much they nailed it in the movies, and they nailed it in this, like called out what would look good on screen kind of thing. So I'm going to give this one, I think I'm going to give it a 7. It was solid. It was solid. I kind of want to read more to see how the other volumes are. There's 4 volumes of trades, I should say, of Mark Millar's run. So there's 2 full volumes. There's like Ultimates 1 and Ultimates 2. And that's broken into 2 trades each. So there's 4 volumes total in trade paperback. And I kind of want to read through all those just because I forgot a lot of this. And also now that I've seen the MCU and it's so different in tone, I want to see what like the rest of it is, right? But I would give this one a solid 7. Like it's good to read. I would definitely recommend this for people who are not just normie MCU fans, for sure. Like I would not give this to someone who's like, I love the MCU and like I love how fun isn't Thor 3 like the funniest one, like you do not give that to this comic to that person, unless you like know them good enough to do that. But for the most part, I would not give the Ultimates to someone who doesn't know anything other than the MCU and is interested in them. But I would say aesthetically, they would be like, oh, I'm very familiar with this. Like this feels like the movies, except I think they would definitely be thrown by the characters and how they're portrayed in this. But yeah, so I'm going to give it a 7. I really enjoyed it though. I think it was fun and I can't wait to read the other ones. Cause, like you said, you and I have both read Fantastic Four Ultimate. We've both read, or I don't know if have you read Ultimate X-Men?
No, I don't think I have.
Okay. I have read Ultimate X-Men, but that was like 20 years ago. And I may have read, I can't even remember because me and Spider-Man. I don't think I've ever read Ultimate Spider-Man, or if I did, I was like boring and like, stop reading it. So I don't even know if I did, I didn't even make it through the first trade because I can't ever remember owning or picking up that trade. So, yeah, I we'll see how I feel about Ultimate Spider-Man now.
Again, such a hater.
What are you going to do? But I will say that the Ultimate line is some of my favorite Marvel comics. So if you maybe are like me and you like DC more and you've never checked out the Ultimate stuff, definitely check out this Ultimates run by Mark Millar. It's fantastic. A little bit adult, so be aware of that. But it is really good, written, really well written. And then I've heard, I don't know because I don't like Spider-Man, but everybody says Ultimate Spider-Man is fucking awesome. So yeah, check that out too, probably. And we both vouch for Fantastic Four. We both like that run. So, but we will get into those as we read them.
Oh yeah, for sure. I will always.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and we will get into those in the next couple of weeks. Do you know? I don't think we want to say which one we're gonna read first, but I don't know. We'll call it out later. Next month when we in the first episode of the month. But
yeah.
But yeah, before we leave, you guys, though, we definitely want to say that we'd like to thank our patrons, Hoku, Otaku Mike, Christian, Kyla, and Matthew. That's right. I always forget because it's my name, so I'm like, it's not me. Yeah. We appreciate
himself, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. We appreciate you guys so much. Thank you very much for supporting us. And because you're a patron, on the second episode of every month, you get to vote. And John, this month, we couldn't think of a topic. Normally we try to come up with a topic. John threw out like May flowers. I'm like, what the fuck are we going to read for that? I was like,
April showers bring May flowers.
Yeah,
and
sure.
It may still be that, but Matt has let me have full control of it now.
Yeah, John is going to fucking, mystery box it for us. And he's going to randomly pick whatever titles he feels like throwing in the ring this year or this month. So you guys can vote on 4 of those titles, which ones you want to see of whatever John picks. I have no idea either, so this will be a surprise to me too. And it better not be 4 Star Wars titles, John.
I'm gonna pick 4.
You better fucking
Star
not.
Wars or Star Wars and Indiana Jones, something.
You know what? If you do that, you know what will happen, and I will shit on that comic for an hour and a half. All right. So
you never know.
You do.
There's some good Star Wars comics out there.
That is true. I guarantee there are some good Star Wars comics. I never would discount a Star Wars comic, but fuck those movies. I don't care about the movies at all. So, but anyway, so once again, thank you to our patrons. If you would like to join our Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word, and join any of the tiers. We have the Hellblazer tier, which you get exclusive early access to all the Hellblazer podcasts that I do, where I'm going through each issue one at a time through the first Hellblazer series, which is issues 1 through 100 or issues 1 through 300. And so I think we're at issue like 67 now or something like that, something close to that. And so we're making our way through it. It's been a fun time. So if you like Hellblazer or any of that stuff, you can check that out. Also, if you are a patron, you get an exclusive podcast each month just for me and John, just for being awesome and being a patron. So this last couple months, we've been doing The Watchmen. So if you have any interest in us breaking down The Watchmen, definitely go sign up at Patreon, because we are doing like a super in-depth version of Watchmen. We're going 4 issues at a time of a 12-issue miniseries. So we're already on part 2 this last month. And this month we're going to do part 3. And that'll be the end of it. Yeah. So if you want to hear our thoughts on one of the best comics, possibly the best comic of all time, definitely go sign up for our Patreon at patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books. And is there anything else we need to hit, John?
No, just if you're out there on social media, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I think with that, we'll see you on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.